Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into the slow, quiet, and honestly often entirely misunderstood geometry of long-term wealth. We're exploring a hidden mathematical reality that just sits quietly in the background of our lives, completely dictating our financial futures. Most of us are conditioned to believe that wealth building is loud, it's fast, and it's intensely visible. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if the real secret to financial freedom is actually mastering the art of the invisible? To understand why so many people give up on their financial journey right before the finish line, I want you to imagine just for a second planting a seed in the ground. Let's say it's a bamboo seed. You water it every single day. You protect it from the weather. You patiently wait. A week passes, nothing happens. A month passes, still nothing. A year passes, and absolutely nothing visible has changed. Most people at this point would just stop watering. They'd assume the seed is dead. They fight this agonizing urge to walk away from their investment of time and energy, and eventually, they just surrender. But the crucial point here is that success and wealth operate exactly like that bamboo tree. For years, a bamboo tree appears to do almost nothing above the surface. Yet underground, out of sight, an enormous, complex root system is being built. Then, seemingly overnight, rapid, explosive growth begins. Observers only ever see that sudden, explosive canopy, right? They rarely see the years of invisible preparation being built in the dark. It's one of the greatest misunderstandings about wealth. People expect progress to be visible right from the very beginning. Let's dive into Section 1, the invisible years. We're going to explore the hidden friction that traps incredibly hardworking professionals. This paradox perfectly captures a visceral, everyday frustration. Millions of people receive raises year after year. They get the promotion, they land the big new client, yet they spend their lives frantically climbing a corporate ladder only to realize it isn't actually leaning against a solid financial wall. Imagine receiving a raise every year for the next decade and feeling absolutely no richer at the end of it. It's a total paradox. You feel richer on paper, for sure, but your actual financial freedom remains totally stagnant. Psychologists and mathematicians actually have a name for this. They call it the Valley of Disappointment. During this painfully slow first decade of wealth building, your portfolio is simply too small to do any meaningful work for you. The curve is so incredibly flat that people interpret the lack of visible progress as literal evidence that they're failing. You work hard, you invest consistently, yet your life seems completely unchanged. And because they believe they're failing, they quit. But here's the secret. The invisible years are not wasted years. They are the years where your foundation is being built entirely out of sight. Which brings us to Section 2, the linear thinking trap. Why is sitting in that valley of disappointment so incredibly difficult for us? Well, it's because we're literally fighting a war against our own biological wiring. Human beings expect effort and reward to move together. We are biologically wired for linear thinking. Think about it. If I work for 1 hour, I receive 1 hour's worth of pay. If I run on a treadmill for 20 minutes, I burn a predictable number of calories. But wealth doesn't follow a straight line. Wealth curves upward exponentially. And that massive friction between what our linear brains expect to see and what the exponential math is actually doing in the background is exactly what trips almost everyone up. And that friction leads right into Section 3, the upgrade trap. Because of that linear mindset we just talked about, we are constantly hunting for immediate, visible rewards. This leads us directly into a vicious cycle, a real dopamine trap. Every raise you get is immediately met with a new expense, a better car, a slightly bigger apartment, designer clothes. We don't spend more because we need more. We spend more just because our income allows it. This means you're running faster and faster on the treadmill. You're putting in more hours, but your financial freedom remains exactly at zero. Your lifestyle is rising at the exact same pace as your income. Let's contrast these two different paths. When you permit yourself to upgrade your lifestyle the absolute second your bank account has a little breathing room, you aren't just buying things. You are actively eating the seeds of your future wealth before they even have a chance to touch the soil. You're consuming the raw materials required to build your freedom. The rich, on the other hand, they don't just buy things. They make a deliberate, quiet choice to build assets that will eventually buy things for them. They are quietly planting a future forest. This really brings us to the physics of loss. The true cost of a luxury upgrade isn't the price on the tag today. It's the staggering exponential loss of what that exact money would have become over the next 20 or 30 years. Because wealth is exponential, every single time you give in to that dopamine trap, you are trading massive future freedom for just a fleeting moment of present comfort. Every dollar spent today is a direct trade-off against tomorrow. Okay, let's move to Section 4, the exponential explosion. So how do we actually break free from this? We need to look at the sheer mind-bending mathematical power of time. To truly grasp the explosive endgame of compound interest, just consider the number 42. If you were somehow able to fold a standard piece of paper in half exactly 42 times, its thickness wouldn't just be tall. It would literally reach the moon. Now, I know that sounds completely absurd, but it perfectly proves that exponential math is entirely backloaded. Those first 30 folds look like barely anything, maybe just a thick block of paper. But the final few folds, they bridge the entire gap to the moon. And this exact same math maps perfectly onto a human lifetime. Over 3 distinct phases, your wealth transforms. In decade 1, the growth is completely invisible. It's agonizingly slow, human-powered effort. But if you hold on into decade 2, momentum builds. Your money actually starts earning its own money. Finally, by decade 3, you reach this beautiful geometric expansion. The system becomes completely self-powered, leading to an explosive endgame where your money does all the heavy lifting for you. So, starting early with just a tiny, seemingly insignificant seed mathematically defeats waiting around to start later with a massive block of gold. Why? Because the real asset in wealth building isn't actually money. The real asset is time. Compound interest is not magic, it's simply time multiplying itself. Time will always, always be the heaviest weight on the financial scale. To really prove that the most extraordinary results arrive late, we just have to look at one of the most successful investors in history. Consider that 99% of Warren Buffett's entire net worth was generated after his 50th birthday. 99%. Onlookers standing on the sidelines see that massive final expansion and they assume it's pure luck or sudden genius. They completely fail to see the decades of quiet, agonizingly slow geometric growth that preceded it. This brings us to our final part, Section 5, the competitive advantage. Let's bring this all together. The geometry of wealth reveals a really profound truth about who actually wins the financial game. Those who finally succeed aren't always the smartest, the most talented, or the highest earners. They are simply the ones who stay in the game long enough for the math to matter. In a modern world completely addicted to fast dopamine hits, endless scrolling, and instant consumption, your simple, quiet patience is literally the most lucrative financial advantage on the planet. Wealth isn't about flashing luxury. It is the quiet accumulation of ultimate freedom. The hardest part of building wealth isn't actually becoming rich. It's staying patient enough to reach the point where compounding finally explodes. Remember that every single dollar spent today is a trade-off against your future. So the ultimate question I want to leave you with is this. Are you willing to stop running on the invisible treadmill? Can you plant your forest today, resist the urge to dig up the seeds tomorrow, and just let time quietly do the heavy lifting? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And remember, let time do the work.